Have you ever seen a person cry on television and found yourself thinking to yourself, wait a minute, are those actual tears? Or is this some great acting? That's precisely the question Sister Wives fans were asking when Kody's fourth wife, Robyn Brown, wept on camera in what appeared to be one of the most intimate, emotional outbursts in the history of the show. It was raw, it was dramatic, and it was powerful. But here's the kicker. While millions of home viewers felt bad for her, others raised an eyebrow. Because if you were paying attention, Robyn's tears didn't only melt hearts, they shifted power. They transformed the dynamics of the Brown family forever. And some fans are sure it wasn't just an emotional moment, it was a move. This is the tale of Robyn's tender act and secret agenda that lies beneath it all. Have you ever been watching a reality TV show? And then all of a sudden you feel like you're watching something too real, so emotional, so raw, that you're left standing there wondering, wait a minute, is this real heartbreak? Or is this an act? That was precisely the response when Robyn Brown of Sister Wives cried during what ended up being one of the most discussed moments in the program's history. Imagine the scene, the cameras move in close on Robyn's face. Her voice shakes, her eyes tear up, and she digs her hands into her chest as if the world is crushing her. She talks of love, of coming together, of wanting the family to mend. She says she wants only peace, only for everyone to get along, only for the ties of sisterhood to stay intact. Her words are sweet, vulnerable, even lofty. For a moment, viewers at home felt their hearts wrench. Here was a woman who appeared desperate to keep the family safe, to keep it intact in an onslaught of jealousy, bitterness, and frustration. It appeared to be the most unselfish thing. A woman weeping not for herself, but for all the others. But then, the questions started swirling. Was Robyn really the victim of this disintegrating family? Or was this a cleverly timed, cleverly delivered, cleverly executed moment? Because, while the tears flowed, so did something else. The dynamic within the Brown household was changing, and changing hard in her direction. What made this moment so surprising wasn't the tears themselves. It was when they arrived. The Brown household was at a breaking point. Tensions between Kody and the other three wives, Meri, Janelle, and Christine, were higher than ever. Christine was openly wondering about her future. Meri was off in her own little world, feeling rejected and ignored. Janelle was quietly resentful, weighing independence over the mayhem around her. The family was fraying before our eyes, and amidst all that turmoil, Robyn cried. It was like a movie moment. Just as all seemed to be coming unraveled, the tender wife moved forward with tears that commanded attention. It was compelling TV. It stopped Kody in his tracks. It stopped the viewers in theirs. And that is where the discussion started. Because to some, it appeared to be sincerity. But to others, it appeared to be the timely performance. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. When Robyn cried, Kody didn't merely observe. He responded, he leaned in, he softened, he stood up for her. Audiences who had seen Kody dismiss or bicker with his other wives couldn't help but observe the contrast. When Christine cried, he would brush it off as whining. When Meri cried, he became cold and icy. When Janelle got frustrated, he accused her of being too independent or uncooperative. But when Robyn cried, Kody softened. His rage dissipated. His attention shifted from her to her. He defended her stance, guarded her reputation, and even shifted the blame to the other wives. Robyn's tears did not simply indicate her emotion. They gave her power. And this was why that tender scene shocked everyone. Because it wasn't merely about sadness. It was about control. Sister Wives fans went wild online after the show aired. Social media was ablaze with arguments. On one side were those viewers who sympathized intensely with Robyn. They claimed her tears were real. She was devastated seeing the family disintegrate, and she was the only one seriously attempting to keep things together. But on the other hand, were the cynics. They felt Robyn's tears were crocodile tears, calculated, strategic, and intended to garner sympathy not only from Kody, but from viewers as well. These fans explained how her tearful moments always seemed to occur when her standing in the family was questioned, or when Kody's loyalty was put on the test. Before long, the phrase Robyn's tender act started going around on social media. making her either the most manipulative wife or the most emotional wife. Everything began with that one moment of tenderness. It was the start of Robyn not only being regarded as yet another wife, but also as Kody's favorite wife. Her vulnerability put her directly in the middle of Kody's gaze. Her sweetness made her appear like the better wife in comparison to the others, who were usually seen frowning, bitter, or fatigued. And that's what surprised fans the most. They weren't simply watching a wife cry. They were witnessing the dynamic of the Brown family shift in real time. You see, in a plural marriage, power does not derive from shouting or commanding. It doesn't even derive from being correct. Power derives from influence, and Robyn learned early on that tenderness, not toughness, was the true secret weapon. Her tears were more than sadness. They were a message. They said, "I'm the one who cares the most. I'm the one trying to save this family. I'm the one who deserves Kody's loyalty." And whether knowingly or not, that message resonated. Kody heard it, the other wives did too. And viewers at home couldn't shut up about it. So, why was this sweet moment so jarring? Because it made everybody Kody, the wives and viewers, guess what was going on. Was Robyn really the soft-hearted peacemaker that she presented herself to be? Or was she employing tenderness as a tool, playing the long game for securing her position as Kody's sole true partner? That one moment of sweetness, those shaking words and spilling tears, was one of the most contentious moments in Sister Wives history. It was the match that lit years of argument, the seed that sprouted into the feeling of Robyn as the favorite, and the start of the decline of the Brown family's togetherness. Because in that moment, something became very clear. Robyn's tears weren't tears. They were power. Since the day Robyn joined the Brown family, everyone's part was defined. She wasn't like the rest. Meri, Janelle, and Christine had endured decades of hardship, sacrifice, and grief within the plural marriage. They understood what it was to battle for attention, to cope with jealousy, to juggle children and duties within a world where no one really felt whole. Then Robyn, the soft-spoken, reserved woman with large eyes, a soft smile, and a soothing voice. She was as close to angelic as possible. She spoke of love, unity, and belief. She didn't pressure, she didn't scream, she didn't fight. And for Kody, who had been struggling with tension among his other wives, Robyn was a refuge. Fans picked up on it immediately. The cameras always seemed to set Robyn up in a way that made her appear like the eye of the hurricane. She looked gentle, compassionate, patient, and when she wept, her tears appeared like waterfalls of authenticity. But while everyone else was tasting sweetness, others wondered, did Robyn volunteer for this role? When Robyn Brown first entered the Sister Wives world, she was not simply another wife. She was a character out of a fairy tale. A woman who seemed soft, gentle, serene, and very spiritual. To fans who had been observing the Brown family's dramatic dynamics for years, Robyn felt like a breath of fresh air. She smiled sweetly. She talked softly. She had the demeanor of a peacemaker. Even from the start, her image was constructed by her, by Kody, or by how the TLC portrayed her. She wasn't Christine, outspoken. She wasn't Janelle, independent, and she wasn't Meri, perpetually sporting visible heartache. No, Robyn was other. Robyn was the angelic wife. But here's the question, was this really who Robyn was? Or was it the start of a long game? A hushed plan to position herself at the top of the Brown family food chain. First impressions are everything, particularly on reality TV. When Robyn joined the family in season 1, fans could tell right away that her personality was a jarring contrast to the other wives. She never yelled, she never fought, she tended to be shy, with a sort of humility that worked perfectly for the role of the new wife adapting to a settled family. But behind that shy mask was something fierce. Robyn presented herself as being someone who greatly cherished love, faith, and solidarity. She spoke constantly of family togetherness, of treasuring the relationship between wives, and of the sweetness of plural marriage. It was nearly too good. She seemed like the puzzle piece that would fill in the gaps already starting to develop in Kody's marriages. And what about Kody? He saw it immediately. While his other wives were struggling with resentment, exhaustion, and jealousy, Robyn was cool, forgiving, and eternally patient. For Kody, who loved to be admired, Robyn was just what he wanted a wife to be. She didn't confront him directly. She complimented him. She respected his position as the patriarch. And whenever tension between Kody and his other wives flared, Robyn retreated. allowing him to feel dominant while appearing to be the supportive heavenly wife. This balance made her glow. Suddenly Kody was around Robyn more and more. He spoke of how she made him feel respected, how she didn't nag him, how she seemed to genuinely get him. To viewers it was obvious Kody wasn't merely falling for Robyn. He was falling for the concept of Robyn, the heavenly picture she presented. Reality television can transform a person into a hero or a villain, and Robyn understood that cameras were always present. Meri, Janelle, and Christine had years of aggravation simmering, but Robyn played it cool, composed, and encouraging. When arguments arose, she sat in silence, shaking her head sympathetically, usually with a tinge of sadness in her eyes. When she did talk, her words were chosen very carefully, soft, emotional, and always bearing the picture of someone who desired peace. And here's the thing, audiences eat that up. In a family full of tension, Robyn became the sympathetic one. She wasn't starting fights. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't accusing anyone. She was just trying to help. This made her relatable to viewers who saw her as the victim of a messy family dynamic. It made her look like the most reasonable, most selfless wife. But critics weren't deceived. They began to wonder, was this truly Robyn's personality, or was this an act she put on for the cameras and for Kody? Let's examine the trend. Whenever the family got into trouble, Robyn hardly ever yelled. Instead, she played the long game. She allowed the others to appear angry while she appeared together. She allowed Christine to appear jealous, Janelle to appear distant, and Meri to appear broken. And as a comparison, Robyn appeared like the saint. And that is what some of the fans call the long game. Robyn did not have to win all the arguments. She did not have to fight loudly. She only needed to win Kody's allegiance. And that allegiance would ultimately give her an edge at everything else. By consistently appearing calm, gentle, and nurturing, Robyn gradually established herself in the role of the good wife. That role became reality over time, not because it happened to be true, but because that is what everyone, particularly Kody, came to believe. One of Robyn's greatest assets was her peacemaking skills. Whenever tensions boiled between the other wives, Robyn was the one who nodded understandingly, speaking softly with words such as, "I just want us to love each other," or "this family is too important to break apart." Those words themselves are innocuous, even altruistic. But consider the effect. By being the peacemaker, Robyn set herself up as the one who was above the drama. She wasn't choosing sides. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't the issue. And when you're not the problem, you'll resemble the solution. Kody leaned into that. Whenever the other wives annoyed him, Robyn was his refuge. She was the cool to his heated, the wife who didn't stir up drama, the wife who appreciated him. In his mind, that made her the best wife, the one who got it. But viewers are wiser than actors give them credit for. Eventually fans started making the connections. They saw how Robyn's image as the heavenly wife worked for her every time. When Christine expressed jealousy, Robyn emerged looking patient and tolerant. When Janelle stood up for herself, Robyn emerged looking loyal and committed. When Meri crumbled, Robyn emerged looking stable and strong. Whatever the other girls did, Robyn invariably seemed better in comparison. And this didn't seem like accident. It seemed like a scripted part. The arguments online intensified. Was Robyn really this angelic character? Or was she controlling the narrative, utilizing her serenity to get ahead at all costs? Flash forward a few seasons, and Robyn's plan, if that's what it was, worked big time. Kody's allegiance moved increasingly toward her. He spent more nights in her home. He came to her defense more intensely. He even chastised the other wives for not being more like Robyn. And when the other marriages fell apart, Robyn was left unmoved. She did not merely endure the disarray, she flourished within it. Her angelic reputation had rendered her inviolate. By the time Christine departed, by the time Janelle stepped aside, by the time Meri finally turned her back on it all, Robyn had become not only one of the wives, she had become the wife. The favorite, the survivor. So, was Robyn's angelic persona genuine, or was it a facade? That's the million-dollar question. There are some fans who insist that Robyn is actually just that soft-hearted, that she did actually wish for peace, and that her tranquil nature was merely misunderstood. They view her as the only person who actually attempted to make plural marriage a success. Others claim that Robyn had the longest game of all, that she constructed a reputation of tenderness, peace, and loyalty not only for herself, but as a means of subtly nudging the other wives aside. that she was fully aware of what she was doing, and her angelic reputation was the best tactic. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Perhaps Robyn is indeed gentle and serene by nature, but perhaps she also realized that those traits could be manipulated. Manipulated as weapons. Weapons to get Kody to fall in love with her. Weapons to garner sympathy from viewers. Weapons to guarantee her kid's future. Whatever the reality, one thing is certain, the angelic portrait worked. Robyn didn't merely become a member of the Brown family, she remade it. And whether coincidentally or intentionally, she turned out to be the star of the story of sister wives. Undefined because sometimes, on reality TV and in real life, the person most silent in the room isn't the weakest. Sometimes they're the one dealing out the longest, wisest game of all. Reality television feeds on emotion. One tear can turn the tide of the story. A sob can turn one human into a victim, and the other into an antagonist. Robyn seemed to grasp this more than anyone else. When Christine questioned Kody's decisions, Robyn sobbed. When Janelle complained about her frustrations, Robyn sobbed. When Meri became aloof and heartbroken, Robyn sobbed. And each time Kody reacted the same way, he ran to Robyn's defense. He stood up for her. He blamed the other wives for being unfair, cruel, or even jealous. And slowly but surely, Robyn's tears became her most powerful weapon. It wasn't loud manipulation. It wasn't confrontational out in the open. It was gentle. It was emotional. And it was astoundingly effective. On the surface, Robyn Brown's tears, gentle words and angelic smile seemed perfect. To some she was the epitome of kindness. The woman struggling to keep a family from coming apart at the seams. But as time went by, cracks began to appear. The other wives weren't oblivious. The fans weren't oblivious. And gradually the world began wondering, was Robyn's sweetness genuine? Or was it something far more calculated? This is where it gets interesting. This is when the whispers escalated to allegations, and Robyn's tender act was one of the most contentious plots in Sister Wives. Christine Brown was the first to speak what fans had been hinting at for a while now. She confessed that Robyn's tears always happened at the right time. If Kody was furious, if the family was dysfunctional, if the wives were holding their ground, then suddenly appeared Robyn, shaken and tearful, deflecting attention away from the fight and onto her feelings. For Christine, this didn't happen by accident. This was manipulation. She eventually admitted that she frequently felt pushed around, disregarded, and disbelieved when Robyn was present. And the sad fact, Christine wasn't mistaken. Whenever Robyn wept, Kody didn't console Christine, or Janelle, or Meri, he consoled Robyn. And that's when Christine started to put two and two together. Robyn's tears weren't merely sad. They were potent. Christine wasn't the only one with this perception. Meri, once Kody's lawfully wedded wife, felt utterly discarded. Whenever there was an attempt to show Meri her pain, Kody dismissed her. But when Robyn wept, Kody suddenly became responsive, gentle, and caring. Meri began to feel that Robyn's tears were more important than her own heartache. Janelle, the most self-sufficient wife, also saw the inequality. She observed how Robyn would cry, and immediately changed the tone of a fight. At the same time, Janelle's frustrations regarding money, children or autonomy were always talked over as nagging. The wives got together and noticed a pattern. Robyn's sweet gesture wasn't just sweetness. It was protection. It made her invincible. Kody quote's response to Robyn's feelings only served to exacerbate the situation. He came to her defense aggressively, frequently deflecting blame onto his other wives. If Christine was crying, he labeled her dramatic. If Meri was crying, he accused her of bearing grudges. If Janelle was complaining, he told her she was being unfaithful. But when Robyn cried, Kody was her knight in shining armor. He consoled her. He confirmed her. He treated her like she was the only one who really got him. This dual standard wasn't only painful to the other wives. It inserted a wedge right into the heart of the family. As audiences sat through season after season, they couldn't help but see what was occurring. The debates raged online. Reddit forums, Twitter tantrums, and Facebook communities ignited with inquiry. Why does Robyn always cry at the most pivotal moments? Why will Kody only yield when Robyn weeps, but become unyielding when the others do? Is Robyn playing the victim to exert greater control? Several fans believed Robyn was a manipulative genius. Others claimed she was merely more attuned to her feelings. But there was no doubt her tears weren't just sad moments. she was altering the direction of the entire family dynamic. By this time, the cracks in the family were unmistakable. Christine openly confessed she could no longer cope with Kody's favoritism. Meri became more withdrawn, holding on to a marriage that was no longer hers. Janelle took comfort in her independence, spending more time emphasizing her children than her husband. And in the midst of it all, Robyn was still the untouchable one. Her tears protected her from judgment. Her soothing voice stood out in stark contrast to the others' frustration. And each time she cried, Kody's loyalty wrapped around her like a shackle. The other wives became invisible. Their hurt did not count. Their battles did not count. In Kody's eyes, and more in the audience's eyes, Robyn's feelings counted most. Here's where things get hottest in the debate. Robyn's crying always seemed to occur at the most pivotal moments. When Kody was about to be cornered by the wives, Robyn cried. When Christine was finally fighting back, Robyn cried. When the family was under public fire, Robyn wept. And every time, the attention shifted. The altercation ceased being about Kody's actions, or the wives' hurt. It became about defending Robyn. Was this on purpose, or just by chance? That's the million-dollar question. If on purpose, Robyn executed one of the greatest reality TV tactics of all time. If not, then she simply possessed a personality that had a natural ability to command respect in a deteriorating family. Either situation resulted in the same outcome. Robyn's gentle gesture rendered her unassailable. For Christine, the fissures became too numerous to deny. She came to the realization that she could no longer exist within a marriage where her opinion didn't count. Her tears didn't count. Her feelings didn't count. Christine did not view Robyn as a victim, but rather as the source of her own isolation. Each tear that Robyn cried appeared to wipe away Christine's years of dedication. Each emotional episode from Robyn was a harsh reminder that Kody had picked his favorite. And so, Christine chose to leave. Her leaving was the loudest warning to date that Robyn's gentle gesture wasn't benign, it was ruinous. Once Christine departed, things came apart at the seams. Janelle became more and more withdrawn. Meri clung desperately to false hope. And Robyn's position was more defined than ever. She wasn't merely one of the wives. She was the wife. Her tears had protected her, her vulnerability had put her above the rest. And her serene image had made her Kody's sole partner. The cracks that lay behind the vulnerable act were not cracks. Fractures that divided the family in two. So what did fans finally conclude? The verdict is still split. Some viewers think Robyn is actually misunderstood. A highly emotional woman who happened to find herself in the midst of a disintegrating family. But others think the cracks revealed her real self. A woman who precisely knew what she was doing. Employing tenderness as her arsenal and manipulating her feelings like a chess player to clinch her spot as Kody's favorite. Either way, the tale was evident, the tender gesture wasn't as immaculate as it appeared to be. Behind the tears were cracks. Cracks that betrayed manipulation, favoritism, and the gradual unraveling of a once united family that vowed it would stay that way. Now in retrospect, the cracks behind Robyn's loving gesture weren't minor. They were monumental. They altered everything. They demonstrated that tenderness, strategically applied, was more effective than anger. They revealed that in plural marriage, power wasn't about quantity but perception. And they left everyone with an eerie question. If those tears were staged, what else was planned? The other wives were not blind. Christine, in particular, soon picked up on the trend. She confessed in subsequent interviews that Robyn's tears appeared to fall at perfect times when Kody's loyalty was being questioned or when the family was reaching a breaking point. The impact? Robyn emerged in the position of victim, while Christine, Janelle, or Meri emerged as mean. Everyone watching at home began to argue vehemently. Half thought Robyn was a true soul just trapped in a tempest. The other half thought she was a master manipulator playing a long game. Because this is the reality in plural marriages, power is not always a matter of yelling the loudest. It's not about who Kody protects. And Robyn had Kody's back every step of the way. Tenderness, compassion, tears. For years, 3 words characterized Robyn Brown's place on Sister Wives. To many viewers, she seemed a peacemaker, the wife who wished for harmony when the others were weary of quarreling. But year after year, whispers escalated to accusations. Was Robyn indeed the kind, vulnerable woman that she was on television, or was her performance a part of something even greater? This is where the term hidden agenda comes into play.
Because when you examine the timeline, the choices and the results, it becomes increasingly difficult to think that Robyn's tale was about love. In truth, it starts to resemble something far more deliberate. When Robyn first joined the family in 2010, she was not simply any woman. She was a three-children divorcee stepping into a home that already consisted of 4 wives and a dozen children. That in itself made her arrival contentious. But Robyn had not arrived without a gift. She had arrived with something no one else had brought to Kody: admiration. She openly admired him. She referred to him as her soulmate. She leaned into him in ways the other wives, after all those years of fighting, no longer did. This wasn't love. It was strategy. Robyn knew that in a plural marriage, the path to a husband's heart wasn't directly through rivaling the other wives. It was becoming the one he felt appreciated, desired, and needed. And from the very beginning, she filled that role to perfection. The most obvious example of Robyn's secret agenda was the legal divorce and remarriage. Meri had been Kody's sole legal wife for years. The other wives were merely spiritual partners, not bound by law but by religion. But things changed in 2014. Meri divorced Kody so that he would be able to legally marry Robyn. Why? At face value, it was portrayed as a selfless act, so that Kody could adopt Robyn's children from her first marriage. But the fans were not blind. In making that decision, Robyn gained something no other wife ever had: legal authority. What it meant was if anything went wrong, inheritance, property, money, security, Robyn was covered in ways Meri, Janelle, and Christine were not. To the many who watched, this was the smoking gun. The tender act then appeared as a well-thought-out plan to be the sole true legal wife. As soon as Robyn obtained her legal status, the emotional dynamics were altered even further. Christine, already feeling neglected, became more and more isolated. Janelle, who cherished her independence, concentrated on her children and finances. Meri, heartbroken with the divorce, fell into isolation and despair.
And all the while, Robyn kept her place as the emotional safe space for Kody. If the others were at odds with him, she stood with him. If the others shut down around him, she hugged him closer. Gradually, she erected an emotional wall around herself and Kody, one the other wives could no longer breach. It wasn't love anymore, it was consolidation. Robyn wasn't being shared by Kody. She was absorbing him. Here's the interesting part. Robyn's authority did not result from dominance. It resulted from vulnerability. Unlike Christine, who vocally conveyed her anger, or Janelle, who vocally conveyed her independence, Robyn conveyed frailty. She wept. She whispered. She was the wife who craved peace. But that vulnerability held the power. Whenever Kody felt threatened, Robyn's tears brought him back into her camp. Whenever the family structure was on the verge of breaking down, Robyn played the victim, making everyone else step back. This wasn't vulnerability. It was weaponized vulnerability. Fans also picked up on another important detail: money. Throughout the years, Robyn and Kody made money choices that were raising eyebrows. The most glaring instance? The huge home they bought for Robyn and her children. A home that seemed much more elaborate than what the other wives had. While Janelle was in a modest dwelling, and Christine was grappling with being financially independent, Robyn's dwelling appeared much more stable. And who was behind these choices? Kody. To some fans, it appeared as though Robyn's agenda wasn't merely emotional or lawful. She had a financial agenda as well. Keeping Kody close meant that her family remained stable and resource-rich, unlike the others. In later seasons of Sister Wives, Robyn tended to play the role of the voice of reason. She talked about unity, about love, about not being able to be apart. But here's the catch. She was giving those speeches as the family was falling apart around her. Christine had long since walked out. Janelle was distancing herself. Meri was looking in from the outside. So why did Robyn continue to preach together when together was obviously over? Because it made her appear innocent. It enabled her to say, "I tried. I wanted us to remain together. I'm the one who loved the family." That is, it reshaped the story. Rather than being portrayed as causing the division, Robyn positioned herself as a victim of it. The most revealing aspect of Robyn's agenda wasn't what followers claimed. It was what the other wives finally confessed. Christine openly declared that she could not take the favoritism anymore. She cried out about the disparity and made sure to inform the world that Kody's allegiance to Robyn sabotaged her marriage. Janelle acknowledged that she felt less and less like she belonged to a plural marriage. She saw the dynamics of the family for what they were: Kody and Robyn in one corner, and the rest of them in the other. Meri shared her hurt over being cast aside. Her spiritual relationship with Kody still existed, but legally and emotionally, she had been cast aside. Their words revealed what fans had already guessed. Robyn's warm gesture wasn't merely a gesture of love. It was a gesture of strategy. In retrospect, the puzzle pieces fall into place almost too neatly. Approach the family with gentleness and adoration. Achieve legal status through marriage and adoption. Employ tears and openness to foster emotional devotion. Provide financial security through Kody's provision. Redo the story to be seen as innocent and selfless. Was all of this coincidence? Or was it Robyn's secret agenda from the beginning? Even today, the fan base is divided. Some feel Robyn was just being herself, a woman who cared intensely for her husband and wanted to shelter her children. To them, her vulnerability was authentic. Her tears were authentic, and the favoritism wasn't something she could control. It was Kody's decision. But there are others who view her as the mastermind. To them, every tear was on schedule, every step was calculated, and every choice was part of a scheme to ensure her place as Kody's one true wife. Either way, one fact is undeniable: Robyn's loving gesture altered it all. But here's the irony: Robyn's secret agenda of creating the ultimate family, had it been one, didn't work. Yes, she locked down Kody. Yes, she was made the legal wife. Yes, she was financially secured. But in doing so, the family she infiltrated disintegrated. Christine departed. Janelle drew away. Meri disappeared. Robyn might have won, Kody, but at what expense? Today, when viewers reflect on the Brown family saga, Robyn's position is impossible to escape. She's not another wife. She's the wife who altered the whole direction of the family. Her kind gesture empowered her. Her secret agenda secured her. And her presence turned sister wives from a tale of plural marriage into a tale of favoritism, manipulation, and the fall of a dream. And that's the scary thing. Robyn never had to yell, never had to dominate, never had to battle. All she had to do was be the tender, vulnerable wife. And in the end, it worked. As the years went by, the Brown family cracks grew deeper. Meri drifted apart. Janelle set out on her own. Christine had her breaking point, and ultimately left. But Robyn? She remained. Not just did she remain, she thrived. Kody started spending more and more time with Robyn's household. He rationalized it by explaining she needed him most, or her kids needed stability. But fans couldn't help but notice what was going on. Robyn wasn't merely the tender wife. She was now the favorite wife. Her mood swings, her soft voice, her crying. They had rewritten the marriage. As the other wives competed for attention, Robyn had cemented her status as Kody's sole love. And it's here that the secret agenda enters the picture. Robyn didn't merely desire love. She desired security. She desired her children cared for, her lifestyle established, her future protected. And how to guarantee that? Make herself irreplaceable to Kody. Each tale has its breaking point. For the Browns, that was not loud. It was slow, agonizing, and unescapable. The intimacy that originally held the family together became the very sword that tore them asunder. And when the dust had settled, one reality was certain: the sisterhood of sister wives had been broken. This is where we delve into the consequences. The fallout of Robyn's action, the decisions of the other wives, Kody's change, and the bittersweet legacy that has been left behind. Christine Brown was the first one to leave, and her departure was a milestone not only for the family but for reality television history. After years of heartache, Christine came to the conclusion that she could no longer stay in a marriage where she was judged based on Robyn's tears. She wasn't going to waste the rest of her life begging for leftovers of love. Her move was unexpected, and it left viewers globally stunned. Fans had never seen a wife in a plural marriage quietly put up with things before, let alone walk away from them. Christine's walkaway exposed the weakness of Kody's so-called perfect family, and showed what many had known all along. Robyn wasn't simply Kody's favorite, she was his only true wife. Christine's emancipation was a cultural touchstone. She didn't merely escape a husband. She regained her autonomy, her dignity, and her power. And by doing that, she encouraged many women who had been ensnared in unfair relationships to make that same jump. Janelle, the practical, business-minded wife, was next. Unlike Christine, her separation wasn't romantic. It was liberation. For years, Janelle had humbly tolerated Kody's favoritism. She raised her kids, worked hard, and established herself as a capable independent. But as Kody's universe contracted to center around Robyn, Janelle saw that she no longer fit into his plans. Her marriage to Kody became increasingly remote, more businesslike, until it finally fell apart. And Janelle did not look back. She chose independence, financial stability, and her children over a marriage that no longer offered her love or respect. Her departure confirmed what Christine had already proven. Robyn's presence didn't just shift the balance, it destroyed it. Meri quote. S story is perhaps the saddest of all. Being Kody's first wife, she had previously stood at the apex of dignity. She was the legal wife, the pillar of the family. But when she relinquished her legality in favor of Robyn, all changed. Kody slowly distanced himself from her, leaving her in an emotional limbo. For years, Meri clung to hope, insisting that maybe, one day, things would get better. But deep down, she knew the truth. She had been replaced. Robyn's rise meant Meri's fall. By the time Meri publicly acknowledged the marriage was dead, viewers had already witnessed years of her silent agony. Her tale was a warning of what occurs when softness becomes a weapon, when love is used as power, and one woman's tears take that away from another woman altogether. And then Kody, the man who had once boldly stated his vision of creating a united plural family, had changed into something else. At the end of it all, Kody wasn't a husband of 4 wives. He wasn't even a husband of 3. He was a husband of 1. Robyn. His favoritism was no longer subtle. It was outright. He confessed on camera that Robyn was the only wife who respected him, the only wife who remained loyal, the only wife he still desired. By choosing Robyn, Kody lost everything else. His vision for a plural marriage fell apart. His image of a family man broke apart, and his relationships with his children strained under the burden of resentment. Kody was transformed from head of a large family to husband of a single woman. And that woman was Robyn. So what? Of Robyn. Did her tender act pay off? At the surface, yes. She had everything she ever desired. She was made legal wife. She gained Kody's devotion. She attained financial security. She constructed a protective shield for her children. But underlying that triumph was an empty truth. She stood in the wreckage of a family. Rather than sisterhood, she experienced loneliness. Rather than respect, she experienced blame. Rather than unity, she inherited the remnants of shattered marriages and broken relationships. Her sweetness might have earned Kody, but it left her with the one thing she said she desired: a family held together. Robyn's legacy isn't just penned within the Brown home, it's penned in the minds of the viewers. To some, Robyn was the bad guy of Sister Wives. She was the woman who came into a working, albeit flawed, family and dismantled it. She was the manipulator who perfected the art of playing the victim in order to gain power. To others, she was nothing more than a scapegoat. A woman who loved her husband more than the others could anymore, and who was blamed for Kody's decisions unfairly. But whichever side you are on, this much is true: Robyn's role is indelible. She took the show from a tale of togetherness to a tale of separation. The consequences of Robyn's action didn't simply impact the Browns, it impacted Sister Wives culture. The show began as a documentary on the potentialities of plural marriage. It was supposed to defy stereotypes, to reveal to the world that polygamy could be possible, loving and contemporary. But by the time Robyn's agenda unfolded, the show had turned into a warning story. It revealed to spectators the risks of partiality, the vulnerability of faith, and the erosive force of asymmetry. What started out as a celebration of plural marriage finished out as a warning. When love is not being met in equality, when one member is telling the story, the whole system implodes. And so we come to the question that stays with us, even after the end credits. Was Robyn's sweetness real, or was it always an act? Did she really desire unity, or did she really desire exclusivity? Was she a victim of circumstances, or the orchestrator of the implosion? The answers may never be clear, but the legacy of her act is undeniable. When future fans look back at Sister Wives, they won't just remember the sprawling family, the houses, or even the dream of unity. They will remember the fallout, the way one wife's tears redefined the destiny of them all. Christine's courage, Janelle's independence, Meri's heartbreak, Kody's downfall, and Robyn's tender act. lingering like a shadow over everything. That is the legacy. Not a legacy of love, not a legacy of harmony, but a legacy of division, fostered by kindness, maintained by weakness, and cemented by favoritism. In the end, the Brown saga is about more than polygamy. It's about power, perception, and the precarious interplay of relationships. It's about how the actions of one member of a family, intentional or otherwise, can tip the whole balance of the family. It's about how sweetness, when combined with drive, can be worse than fury. And it's about how a family who used to think forever, found out that forever could be shattered by favoritism, distrust, and a secret agenda. Robyn's move wasn't only sweet, it wasn't only secret, it was revolutionary, and its legacy will resonate far longer than the cameras keep rolling. When Christine departed, however, no one was surprised. Fans had been reading the writing on the wall for years. Janelle did the same, opting for freedom over the sidelines. Even Meri, who had held on for years to a marriage that never was, finally left. And who remained standing? Robyn, the very same wife who entered with tears and tenderness, ended up being the last one by Kody's side. The rest departed empty-handed, heartbroken and publicly shamed. Robyn, on the other hand, won not only her spot but also Kody's sole allegiance. Her tender act wasn't emotion alone. It was survival. It was strategy. And for most fans, it was high-level manipulation. The Brown family has imploded. The marriages have fractured, and the illusion of togetherness is in shambles. But the drama didn't end when Christine stormed out, or when Janelle asserted her independence, or when Meri officially declared the marriage dead. No, this saga rages on in the aftermath. And here, in the shadows of what was a family empire, are the aftershocks of Robyn's tender act so strongly felt. This isn't the fallout anymore. This is the long-term effect. The legacy the kids inherit, the future that Robyn and Kody have to deal with, and the nagging question of whether or not the show, and the family itself will ever be okay again. When the smoke had cleared, Robyn won. She had Kody standing beside her, legally wed, emotionally tied and financially linked. But was this victory? Because what Robyn got wasn't the plural marriage dream she once professed to love. It was something much more isolated. Rather than having 4 wives who could lean on each other, Robyn now had just herself. Rather than having a big chaotic home filled with people bound together by love, she was left with Kody and a broken relationship with the other members of the family. Yes, she had won over Kody's loyalty, but ruinous loyalty is different than loyalty in a successful family. And as the seasons of Sister Wives continued to unfold, Robyn discovered that she was painted not in the saintly peacemaker role in which she hoped to be remembered, but as the villain in the eyes of millions of viewers. Her tender act had succeeded with Kody, but with the world it backfired. If the wives' tales were complicated, the kids' tales were more so. The Brown children grew up for years in a home that taught harmony, collaboration, and love. They were assured that plural marriage was possible, that their mothers may not always see eye to eye, but at heart, they were family. But when Robyn came in and the scales tipped, the children witnessed firsthand the favoritism, the cracks, and ultimately the breakdown. Christine's kids, particularly daughters such as Isabel and Truly, witnessed their mother's tears, her fight, and her strength to escape. To them, Robyn wasn't another wife. She was a representation of why their family fell apart. Janelle's children, like Garrison and Gabriel, grew angry. They spoke out publicly, calling out Kody's neglect and favoritism. Their relationship with their father strained almost to the breaking point, and many fans blamed Robyn for the wedge that was driven between father and sons. Meri's only child, Leon, saw the loneliness their mother endured, and like many others, questioned why her pain was ignored, while Robyn's was magnified. Robyn's children, on the other hand, found themselves in an awkward spotlight. Protected fiercely by both Robyn and Kody, they became part of the reason for the legal shift in marriage. But this protection came at a cost. It deepened the resentment from the other wives' children. The kids' voices made one thing certain: the aftershocks of Robyn's act weren't limited to the adults. They were generational. As the concert went on, the fans got more vocal than ever. Robyn wasn't merely criticized, she was demonized. Online forums branded her as the puppet master, the woman who cried her way into Kody's heart and tore apart a family for her own safety. Memes, think pieces, and endless Reddit threads devoured her every utterance, her every tear,
her every choice. To many, she had become the reality TV villain, not for screaming or flying off the handle, but for playing her hand with subtle skill. All the while, Christine's ratings climbed. She was the favorite of the fans, the independent, strong woman who broke free. Janelle was also lauded for her practicality and for not needing to stand in Kody's shadow anymore. Even Meri, who had been criticized, won people their sympathy for her long years of enduring in silence. But Robyn, she was the cautionary example. And Kody, he wasn't let off the hook either. In a way, Robyn's victory revealed his demise.
Viewers viewed him not as the leader of a plural family, but as a man who left his wives and pushed away his children for one woman alone. With 3 wives removed and only Robyn remaining, the whole premise of Sister Wives was under threat. The series had been constructed on the soap opera of plural marriage. The difficulties, the sacrifices, the interplay of a family like no other. But with a sole wife remaining, the narrative changed. It was no longer about plural marriage. It was about survival. It was about the consequences of favoritism. It was about seeing Robyn and Kody fight to make sense of what was left of their vision. Some viewers questioned, did it have to end here? Did it have to conclude as a cautionary drama about the pitfalls of imbalance? Or were they going to keep going, chronicling the devastation and the uncertain future? As far as TLC was concerned, the answer was straightforward. So long as ratings were up, the show continued. And the ratings were definitely up. One of the most powerful aftershocks was Robyn's own solitude. Yes, she had Kody, but she lost the sisterhood. The bonds with Christine, Janelle, and Meri were broken. She wasn't in a family anymore. She was in a marriage. And ironically, that was exactly the thing she had said she didn't want. She had said repeatedly that she loved the plural marriage lifestyle, the relationships between wives, the camaraderie. But in the end, she had none of it. Her fans observed her isolation. They observed that despite having Kody alongside her, Robyn seemed anxious, depressed, or weighed down most of the time. And many wondered, was this the life she desired? Or did she fight the battle but lose the war? The worst part of the aftershocks isn't what transpired, it's what might have been. In its heyday, the Brown family was literally something revolutionary. A successful plural marriage. A family of women who, though different, made a workable family. Children brought up in love, albeit in nonconformist ways. But with Robyn's arrival and Kody's favoritism, that dream fell apart. And the haunting question left behind is this: if Robyn hadn't arrived, or if Kody had divided his love more equally, could the family have weathered it? The answer is impossible to know. But the guessing never stops. Ultimately, Session 6 isn't about Robyn, or Kody, or the wives. It's about the legacy. The shockwaves of Robyn's small gesture rewrote everything. Christine is free, flourishing, and inspiring others. Janelle is independent, pragmatic, and admired. Meri, though wounded, drew power in leaving. The kids bear the scars and the lessons of what they endured. Kody is small, viewed not as a leader, but as a guy who lost nearly everything. And Robyn, she is still the most polarizing of them all. Victorious and alone at the same time. Adored by Kody, but hated by millions. That's the legacy. Not just the collapse of a family, but the ripple effects of one woman's act of tenderness that turned into the most controversial storyline reality TV has ever seen. The aftershocks will never fully fade. They live on in the hearts of the wives who left, the children who grew up in the chaos, and the millions of viewers who watched it all unfold. And maybe the most cruel irony of all is this: Robyn's gentle gesture was intended to bring together, but it will always be known as the catalyst that brought about disunity. That is the uncertain future. That is the indelible story. To this date, Sister Wives viewers are divided. Some feel that Robyn is indeed the emotional, kind-hearted woman that she has seemed to be. They feel that she never wished for the other wives to depart, and that her tears were real distress. They look at her as a victim of a failing family, rather than the instigator. But others firmly believe otherwise. They think Robyn played the long game, using her sweet image to gradually weed out competition and become the one and only of Kody. For them, each tear, each breakdown, each quivering word was all part of the ulterior motive. And let's be real, love her or loathe her, the outcome speaks for itself. Robyn is the last wife standing. Let quotes take a step back for a moment.
By now, you've seen how Robyn's so-called tender acts weren't just soft gestures of kindness, they were calculated moves that slowly reshaped the entire Brown family dynamic. But what happens after tenderness becomes power? What happens when sympathy turns into dominance? And when the quiet tears of one wife change the very foundation of a plural marriage? And this is where the drama picks up, because session 7 is not about Robyn crying, it's about the aftermath. The ripple of her actions that left all other wives grasping for ground, Kody solidly in her corner, and viewers everywhere wondering if sister wives had made a move from reality TV into something that felt like a one-woman show. When Robyn stepped forward as peacemaker, she did so to the extent that she inadvertently, or even necessarily, portrayed the other wives as villains. Her gentleness made Christine appear defiant. Her crying made Janelle seem too self-sufficient. Her pain made Meri seem bitter and cold. Every wife was thrust into a position, not of her own accord, but by the manner in which Robyn presented herself. And here's the interesting part. The cameras ate it up. Television survives on contrasts. If the angel was Robyn, then someone else would have to be the devil. And piece by piece, Christine, Janelle, and Meri became the problem wives. Their frustrations, their anger, their struggles, it all came in second to Robyn's kindness. Imagine being in that situation, you're part of a plural marriage, already competing for attention, and suddenly you're not just fighting for your husband's time, you're fighting for your own image.
And what about Robyn? She didn't have to struggle at all. She only had to cry. Now let's consider Kody. Recall, this was a man who once boasted about being in balance. He touted himself as being fair, as giving each wife attention, as maintaining a household with several mothers and children harmoniously. But once Robyn's sweet gestures were the center of attention, that balance vanished. The audience picked up on it first. Kody was appearing less for the other wives. He was more protective, more defensive, and a lot more clingy towards Robyn. What had been a plural marriage now looked suspiciously like a monogamous marriage, with 3 very unhappy extra wives sitting around on the sidelines. The transition wasn't merely emotional, though. Financial choices favored Robyn's family. Holidays were centered around her kids. Even the pandemic was used as evidence. When the other wives griped about being overlooked or left out, Robyn and her children appeared to receive the lion's share of Kody's time. It was like tenderness had constructed an impenetrable wall of invisibility around Robyn's residence. A castle where she and Kody were the king and queen, and the others were outside, helpless. This is where the blowback was hardest to take. The sisterhood of sister wives was broken. Christine, always a straight shooter, couldn't bear it anymore. She went public with the fact that Kody's favoritism towards Robyn was killing her spirit. She felt invisible, unwanted, unloved. Her frustration finally boiled over into one of the biggest plot moves of the show. Christine chose to leave. Janelle, the practical one, attempted to maintain the balance as long as she possibly could. But even she could not ignore the glaring truth. Robyn's softness was alienating the family, not uniting them. Janelle grew more loyal to Christine, and farther away from Kody, and then there was Meri. Once the legal wife, once the cornerstone of the family, Meri found herself completely sidelined. Her emotional pleas to reconnect with Kody went unheard. Why? Because in comparison to Robyn's tender tears, Meri's sadness just didn't move him anymore. Individual by individual, the wives faded away, not necessarily physically, at least not in the beginning, but emotionally. The sisterhood that had originally been the show's appeal became nothing more than a memory. If you think the wives were the only ones who noticed, think again. Fans were outraged. Social media went wild with criticism accusing Robyn of manipulation. Memes circulated depicting her crocodile tears. Viewers analyzed every moment, every sigh, every trembling lip, questioning if it was authentic or a setup. Kody wasn't exempt, either. Once portrayed as a peculiar but loyal patriarch, now he was the man blinded by bias, who couldn't or wouldn't see the devastation occurring under his own roof. The backlash became so strong that it rewrote the show's storyline. TLC embraced the drama, devoting more airtime to fights, crying, and ultimatums. The show was no longer about the plural marriage dream. It was about the destruction of one. And at its center was Robyn's tenderness. Here quote, see the catch, tenderness is not necessarily a bad thing. On the contrary, it can be one of the most potent strengths in any relationship. It diffuses anger, closes gaps, and makes for intimacy. But in the Brown family, being tender proved to be a double-edged sword. Robyn's moments of vulnerability made her appear saintly, but they made the rest of the family appear like sinners. Her tears brought Kody nearer to her, but distanced the other wives from her. Her tenderness bonded her with Kody, but split the family asunder irreparably. The one thing that was meant to cure ended up hurting the most. When the dust finally settled, the Brown family was hardly recognizable from what it once was. Christine was no more. Janelle clung to life by her fingernails. Meri was suspended, and Kody, he was hungrier than ever for Robyn. The consequences of Robyn's kind gesture weren't emotional only, it was lasting. It altered the very narrative of Sister Wives. What had begun as a show about family, faith, and unity had become a cautionary tale of favoritism, manipulation, and the destructive nature of perception. Robyn might not have even realized she was using tenderness as a weapon, but by design or by accident, it provided her with precisely what she had been seeking: power. And in the universe of Sister Wives, that power cost him everything else. So, what can we glean from the aftermath of Robyn's tenderness? Easy. In relationships, particularly ones as difficult as plural marriages, feelings aren't feelings, they're tools. They can construct bridges or incinerate them. Robyn's tenderness constructed a bridge right to Kody's heart, but it also ignited every other relationship in the family. And perhaps that's the tragedy. Not because Robyn was soft, not because Kody favored some over others, but because along the way, the fantasy of a one-family unit was lost for the sake of keeping a single relationship alive. That's the ripple effect of softness being converted into power. And that's why Robyn's tears will never be washed away, because they didn't alter a single moment, they altered everything. So what's the truth behind all this? Was Robyn's sweetness reflective of her heart? Or was it an act designed to gain power and control? The truth is never fully revealed. But one thing is certain. Her emotional outbursts redefined the Brown family for all time. What appeared as softness turned out to be strength. What appeared as vulnerability turned out to be power. And what appeared as tears of love could have been the tears that dissolved a plural marriage decades in the making. Robyn's tender act wasn't an instant, it was the make or break. It revealed the weakness of plural marriage, illuminated the risks of partiality, and provided viewers with a ringside seat to one of reality television's most jaw-dropping transformations. Whether you view her as the victim or the manipulator, there's one thing that's certain. Robyn Brown's tears will be etched in Sister Wives history as the most potent weapon of all. Each story has a turning point. In Sister Wives, that crescendo arrived, when Robyn's compassion, her masterfully timed tears, and her gentle words rebalanced the Brown family for all time. But with every climax comes an aftermath, and that aftermath is as sensational, as emotional, and as astonishing as what preceded it. This is where the dust starts to settle at last. The cameras keep rolling, but illusions of togetherness are over. The fantasy of one large happy plural marriage has dissolved, leaving behind only the debris, broken relationships, bruised hearts, and a new reality that no one anticipated. If anyone captured the aftermath, it was Christine. She had been the loudest critic of Robyn's place in the family, and the first to voice out loud what everyone else was thinking. Robyn was the favorite. Christine's breaking point didn't arrive in an instant, it emerged gradually. Years of being unloved, ignored, and dismissed by Kody. But when Robyn's kindness took center stage in the marriage, Christine realized the writing was on the wall. She would never receive the same care, the same focus, or the same devotion. So she did the unthinkable. She left. Her choice surprised not just the family but the entire fan base. For years, viewers had been shown that exiting a plural marriage was nigh on impossible. But Christine demonstrated otherwise. And not only did she leave, but she left with honor, strength, and a newfound sense of confidence that left her a fan favorite. In the wake of it all, Christine's tale turned into one of renewal. She moved from being one of Kody's wives to becoming her own individual, empowering audiences everywhere to embrace happiness over heritage. And in so doing, she revealed just how fractured the Brown family had grown. Next was Janelle. Always the pragmatist, Janelle had struggled for years to maintain the peace. Even her patience, though, eventually wore thin. With more and more time spent with Robyn, Janelle's autonomy increased. She established her own career, made her own choices, and relied most heavily on her children for emotional support. Unlike Christine, she didn't leave immediately, but she started living like she already had. After that, Janelle became the quiet rebel. She wasn't loud or dramatic, but she made it unmistakably clear. She wasn't going to be second fiddle to Robyn anymore. Fans loved her strength, her focus on her kids and work, and her refusal to let resentment get the best of her. But even as she remained attached to the family, it was clear, Janelle was adrift. And with each season her disconnection from Kody became unavoidable. That if Christine was the wife who departed and Janelle was the voiceless rebel, Meri became the overlooked wife. Once the legal spouse, once the woman who gave Kody validity in the eyes of the law, Meri was left utterly set aside afterward. Her marriage to Kody was strained to the point of no return. She was given no intimacy, no partnership, and no actual place in the family dynamic. And here's where the aftermath really hurt her. Because while Christine and Janelle could find empowerment in moving forward, Meri was stuck. The fans frustratedly watched Meri hold on to a man who no longer desired her. They pleaded with her to leave, to take a cue from Christine, to prioritize herself. But Meri remained, maybe out of loyalty, maybe out of fear, or maybe out of hope that one day Kody would notice her again. In the wake of it all, Meri was reduced to a tragic character, a woman who had everything, only to be left with nearly nothing. And then there's Robyn. You would think that with Christine deceased, Janelle cold and Meri exiled, Robyn was the victor. She had Kody's undivided attention. She had his protection, his loyalty, and his love. But this is the catch. Victory didn't taste so sweet, because what Robyn had inherited wasn't a family. It was a broken empire. Yes, she had Kody, but at what price? The vision of sisterhood was shattered. The togetherness that had once characterized the Browns was lost. And instead of having love and support around her, Robyn was left alone, blamed and resented, not only by the wives who departed, but by viewers who viewed her as the source of it all. Her gentleness had made her strong, but the aftermath saw that strength resemble a crown of thorns. She might be the queen, but her kingdom lay in ashes. Lastly, there's Kody. The man who used to brag about balance, about harmony, about loving 4 women equally. The aftermath saw that image destroyed. He had begun with 4 wives, a huge family, and the approval of viewers who regarded him as the embodiment of plural marriage. But after years of favoritism, obstinacy and blind loyalty to Robyn, he had 1 wife, broken relationships with his children, and a reputation in shreds. The irony stings. The person who desired to depict the world with the elegance of plural marriage did exactly that, but they depicted it with its ugliest form. And what about the fans? The fallout was not only experienced by the Browns, it was experienced by millions of viewers. Viewers who had previously tuned in to observe an unconventional lifestyle were watching a tragedy unfold. They weren't merely interested in the drama, they were taking sides. They cheered for Christine's autonomy. They admired Janelle's strength. They sympathized with Meri, and they condemned Robyn and Kody with unforgiving criticism. The show had evolved from a family experiment into a cultural phenomenon, something of a cautionary tale about what happens when favoritism, manipulation and imbalance take hold. What's the ultimate takeaway of the aftermath? Robyn's tender gesture wasn't an isolated lapse in judgment. It was the match that ignited the fire. It tipped the scales of power, altered the family dynamic, and set off a chain of events that eventually culminated in the demise of the Brown family that we once knew. And it left scars that might never heal. Christine might have found liberty, Janelle might have discovered autonomy, Meri might still be seeking where she belongs. Robyn might have Kody, but not the sisterhood she professed to admire. And Kody, he might still have a wife, but he lost the family he once boasted of creating. The aftermath is this: tenderness became power, power became division, and division became downfall. Now, fans are left asking themselves, what next? Will the Browns ever get back together? Will Robyn and Kody's love prevail despite the isolation? Will Meri ever leave? Will Christine and Janelle pen new tales of happiness? The answers aren't certain, but this much is undeniable. The Brown family will never be the same, and it all begins with one moment, one act of kindness that stunned the world, transformed the family, and left in its wake an aftermath that's still playing out today. So now I'll leave the question to you. Were Robyn's tears real, or were they the most brilliant hidden agenda reality TV has ever seen? Because in the world of sister wives, tenderness isn't always weakness, and sometimes the softest voice in the room has the loudest power of all. Every storm leaves behind a new landscape, and for the Brown family, the storm of favoritism, love and collapse transformed their lives forever. What began as one man, 4 wives, and a dream of unity became heartbreak, breakup, and a broken legacy. But this is not where the story ends with the collapse. It goes on with new beginnings, fresh starts, and questions left unanswered that keep fans in suspense, even today. So let's move into the here and now. Let's pose the question that everyone's been asking: where are they now? If anyone is the epitome of rebirth, it's Christine. Decades spent in a marriage that paid no attention to her. Christine stepped away, and she didn't step away quietly. She reinvented herself. No longer wife number 3. She was now Christine, the independent, Christine the empowered, Christine the woman who opted for joy over obligation. She's radiant now, not only figuratively, but even literally. Her Instagram beams positivity. She spends time with her kids, cuddles her grandkids, and flaunts the world her new life. She's smiling, laughing, cooking, and traveling in a way that fans never witnessed when she was living in the shadow of Kody's favoritism. And maybe the greatest shock of them all, Christine fell in love again. A love that is balanced, equal, and true. Fans cheered at her wedding and engagement as a victory, not only for Christine, but for all viewers who ever felt stuck in an unbalanced relationship. Christine's "where are they now?" tale is unambiguous. She's not merely surviving, she's thriving. Next is Janelle, the wife who always walked to her own drummer. Even in the midst of the family's most tumultuous times, Janelle maintained her own career, her own sense of autonomy, and her own parenting style. She was the level-headed one, the logical thinker, the practical one who eschewed drama. Now, after all this has happened, Janelle's independence has just become more resilient. She's no longer identified by her relationship to Kody, she's identified by her strength. Her existence is centered around her children, her entrepreneurial activities, and her own freedom. She isn't sobbing over something she lost or battling to get attention. She's creating the life she wants, on her terms. She is looking up to that. She embodies the quiet strength that doesn't require the spotlight to be strong. And though she hasn't walked fully away in the dramatic fashion Christine did, her distance from Kody is obvious. In the eyes of viewers, Janelle has already chosen her side, and it's not his. Meri quote. Its story is the most complicated. Once Kody's legal wife, once the face of legitimacy in the family, she's now the forgotten partner, caught in the shadows, stuck in limbo. Her "where are they now?" story is not without its bittersweet moments. She's enjoyed business ventures, travel, and good times with friends. On the one hand, she gives us glimpses of a woman who desires more from life. On the other hand, she continues to hold out hope that she can work things out with Kody, despite the fact that he's made it explicit to her that it's over in every sense but name. Fans are divided. Some view her as dedicated, some as trapped. Many plead with her to take Christine's route and get out. And still, Meri stays on. Her choices are obvious. Will she continue waiting for a man who is already gone, or will she finally take care of herself? And then there's Robyn, the woman in the middle. She can have Kody, but what does she actually possess? The illusion of sisterhood is lost. The family cohesion she bawled for is in pieces. The other wives don't trust her any longer. The children keep their distance. And the audience, well, the audience has rendered their verdict. To many, Robyn is no longer the sweet peacemaker. She's the manipulator, the usurper, the favorite who ruined everything. Whether deserved or not, that's her legacy.
Her "where are they now" is a solitary one. She's the queen, yes, but she reigns over a fractured kingdom. Her tears, once mighty, now sound hollow, and the very compassion that had armed her with power has left her with barely more than Kody's adoration and a mountain of resentment from the rest. And lastly, Kody Brown, the man who wanted to show the world plural marriage could work, could be beautiful, could be a dream worth living. Where is he now? Left alone with Robyn, estranged from half of his children, dumped by 3 of his wives, and reviled by millions of television viewers. The legacy he envisioned isn't the one he received. Instead of demonstrating to the world the strength of plural marriage, he ended up being the cautionary example of its failure. His downfall is perhaps the saddest, not because he lost his wives, but because he never appeared to know how his favoritism, his obstinacy, and his refusal to see Robyn's part played, led directly to the very chaos he dreaded. We shouldn't forget the children, the dozens of kids who survived this drama. They witnessed the favoritism, they witnessed the split, they witnessed their mothers suffering, their father aloof, and the family disintegrating. Now all of them have turned into young adults, with their own thoughts, their own lives, and their own detachment from Kody. The sibling relationships continue to be tight in most situations, but that with their father is broken. The "where are they now" of the children is still ongoing, but one thing is certain. The vision of togetherness their parents constructed for TV is not the one they experienced growing up. And what of Sister Wives itself? What started out as a show about love and togetherness evolved into one of the greatest reality TV dramas of all time. The Browns were household names, not due to success, but due to failure. And Robyn's kind deed became the make-or-break moment, the catalyst that altered everything. Fans watch now not to learn about how plural marriage functions, but to observe how it implodes. The show's legacy is no longer one of religion and family. Now it's drama, sorrow and repercussions of favoritism. Where are they now? Christine, free, happy and in love. Janelle, independent, strong and resilient. Meri, stuck, trying to figure out her way forward. Robyn, powerful, yet alone. Kody, a guy who used to have everything, now with nearly nothing. The Brown family's tale is not finished, but the dream that it all began with is lost. The unity is lost. The sisterhood is lost. And in its wake is a broken narrative of love loss, and the ruinous nature of favoritism. Looking at where they are today, one thing sticks. Was it worth it? Was the vulnerability, the tears, the strength worth the annihilation of a whole family? That's the question that will continue to be asked by the fans. And it's the question that guarantees the Brown family saga continues to live on, not as a testament of togetherness, but as a warning of what can occur when love is not equally shared.